to do in the world ever, and that's play bass, and specifically a MIDI bass. This is the Industrial Radio IR4 from Australia. I've had it a few years now. Now you can see this little panel on here. This kind of is a giveaway, really. Other than that, it looks pretty much like sort of like a Fender Jazz bass type thing. This headstock takes a bit of getting used to, but I quite like it now. But it's a well-spec'd bass guitar that works as a regular bass guitar. Ooh, there's a preview sound. Hip shot tuners, Nordstrand pickups. Lovely body, you know. I think it's a Warmouth special, I think, the body. And they get them specially routed out for the electronics. At the back, there's this another giveaway here, a really large plate at the back here, which is concealing electronics. Now, what makes this particularly special, this bass, is that under each fret are 4 sensors, one for each string. So this bass uses, it uses a combination of ways to extract the notes. So it can detect a sound from where you're playing it. There is sensors, or rather, there are piezos in the bridge, which from that, it gets which string you play in and the velocity. And it combines that with the notes detected from this touch sense thing that they call it. Now, this little thing here, this is the little interface box that the bass is plugged into. So there's a multi-pin out here. You can see it's attached. That's another giveaway, really, to a. It looks a bit like an an RGB port? No. Can't remember what it's called, but an interface port anyway. But it is a bespoke thing. So this cable is extremely valuable for this particular bass, because without it, you know, it's just a regular bass. Because, oops, there's a regular jack out there. So unplug that and you've got a normal passive bass guitar, albeit one which you do feel slight little ridges underneath the frets, ever so slightly, but not enough to put you off. But anyway, where is this sound coming from? Well, there it is, the beauty that is the Elektron Analog 4 Mark II in its original pale grey. You get these in black now. This is a perfect match for this, really, because the Analog 4, as I'm sure most of you are aware, is a 4-voice analog synthesizer. 4 voices and 4 strings. And that's what this match is, just beautiful, because we can have a different synth engine on each string. So a different voice. But, and this is something that we're going to explore a bit tonight, the way that the voice allocation works on the Analog 4 is really interesting, because any of the channels, our 4 channels, can be played properly polyphonically. So this bass has a few different MIDI modes. Again, we're going to explore these things, and I'm going to show you this really nice symbiotic relationship. These two things weren't designed necessarily for each other, but they may as well have been, because it really does work really, really well. One aspect that I'm not going to go and cover tonight is that as well as the sound of the bass pickups coming out of the regular jack, the regular bass sound does carry down that cable as well. And then from the little interface, I'm going to turn this down for a moment. From this little interface box, I can run an audio output. What I typically do is I run it through this, which is another Electron box. This is an analog drive. And then I put it through this little, it's like a little IR box, cab responses. And then I can get different distortions from the analog drive, and then just dial in and I leave that set on just one particular speaker setup. Something's quite nice with that setup is, though, that the analog drive can store different settings as MIDI setups. So you can change presets and it'll change presets on the analog drive. However, I'm explaining the thing that we're not going to do. I'm going to do that in future episodes. It's just too much to kind of look at with just this. So this rig to my left, this, normally the Analog 4 would live on this tier here, where the lid is. This is my MIDI bass rig with an octatrack at the top, then the Analog 4, and then the Analog Rhythm. And there's vocals there. Some of you may have seen my rather shambolic performance on Sonic State Live 2 from a few years ago, where I tried to pull all this together. And my goodness, it's so overwhelming, even when you're at home playing with it, just the range of options. But to try and take it out and do a performance, my God, that was riddled with just... Well, you know what I'm like at the best of times, or worst of times. So rather than delve into the whole rig, now I will be doing that in future. It's always been my plan. In fact, launching my show really was always about, I wanted to chronicle my MIDI bass adventures, which I've done various videos over the years. But that's the point of, in fact, it's why I bought cameras. It's why I did everything about doing live stuff from here was specifically for this. So it's definitely something that I really want to show to everyone, because I think it's such a unique experience. Anyway, I'm just checking in. I'm just checking in with the live room to make sure, because we're streaming live here Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. every week for the Gaz Williams show, and I've got my other sister show on a Monday, the Adventures in Eurorack, which less said about Monday's show, the better. I didn't have a great show. Right, just checking in with the chat room. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live. I really enjoy it. If you are watching this on whatever platform, YouTube is the preferred one, just because that's where the most chat happens. So I recommend, if you've got the possibility, to switch over and pick up the stream on YouTube if you want to get involved in the community chat there, because I am blessed with a wonderful audience who are ever so kind and patient and help me out very often. I will be, I'll be checking in with the chat room. I'm sorry I can't give full attention to the chat room because it does really throw me off my, what I'm doing, and I get distracted at the easiest opportunity anyway. So let's get back to this then. So what I wanted to do then tonight is kind of look at this particular relationship and to explore a few things. So at the moment, what I've got then is I'm just going to largely rely on presets for tonight, rather than getting into too much sort of sound designy kind of stuff. But well, we'll see how we go. This is then the first patch on this, which is called Bloodnet, but that's quite a nice sound for the bass. Oh, let's turn it back up. So that's our sound. So we're going to take there's a little tiny bit of delay on there, so we'll just nudge that out for now. Now, there isn't any lag at all from me. That's one of the things about this system. I mean, it's not a cheap system, but it probably is the best system. But this is only using a very basic MIDI relationship, which is just a single channel at the moment. We will go more into multi-channel, but I'm essentially giving it note on and note off information. In a future episode, I'm going to show the software that Industrial Radio, the company behind this bass, they've developed a software solution which takes it to the next level. And what that basically involves is taking the output. You have to take the piezo outputs. You've got 4 separate outputs there, which can come out of this box. You have to take those 4 outputs into an audio interface so it can sample directly from those the 4 strings, and you'd have to take the 4 outputs, 1 per string, out of this, which thankfully it has got multiple outputs. So that's 8 inputs into an audio interface, and then this software aggregates it and it essentially takes the envelope with like some sort of envelope follower that's getting it from each of the individual strings, and essentially applies that envelope over the audio output coming out the synth. Okay, sounds a bit weird, but basically that contour then takes into account string energy. And that's the difference. And this is where this is a unique thing. It's a little sophisticated. I was only meaning to sort of talk about it briefly, but we will be looking at that in future shows as well, because it's a really interesting thing. It means that, like, you know, if you're playing sort of like a slap and pop sort of technique. Let me just take this out for now, but there's a lot of mutes and just knocking on the strings as well, which when you're playing out through an amp, you want those little sounds. They become like little ghost notes and bits in the groove. But just in a plain old MIDI setup with note on, note off, you know, it doesn't take into account that. But that software solution, it does, and it makes it feel much more like playing bass. Whereas the way I'm doing it tonight is much more like triggering notes. And that's the key thing. So some people who go to play this and expect it just to track and follow you're playing in a really fluid and natural way, may be slightly disappointed. That system I've just described, that gets much closer to that. But even with that in place, you still have to approach the playing in a mindful way. Now let me show you what I mean. Now I got this set up as a monophonic sound. But one thing you'll notice is if I play open strings, it doesn't trigger anything. Now I can choose that because from the bass itself, there's an ingenious way of programming it, but I can choose where I want my MIDI notes to start and where I want my MIDI notes to end. So at the moment, I've got all the frets turned on. What I've turned off though are the open notes, are the open strings. Now, like when you're playing bass, you normally need lots of open strings. But in this case, what happens is open strings, if you bounce on the strings a little bit just as you're playing, see, it sends some spurious notes that you don't want. So this is the way I choose to do it, but it's very configurable. Now, I said I was going to explain the programming. I wonder if I can show you, if I put that into that. I'm not sure if we can get the folk, it might be. Oh, there we go. So you can see at the moment it's displaying octave. I don't know if you can just read that on there. It's going to be a bit awkward for me to show you what that is saying. So you just have to take my word for it. But that little panel then is the programming window, which lets you see what you're doing with the bass. I think newer models of this have done away with that a little bit because there is actually a USB output on the interface as well. And I think that's the optimum way of using this particular setup is with this going in to a computer via USB, and then it's MIDI over USB as well. So, you know, it makes a lot of sense. However, I tried to set this up as this standalone, you know, doorless kind of setup. So thus not using it with a computer. However, to do that thing that I was explaining earlier, the full shebang that I'm not talking about tonight, absolutely needs the use of a computer. So anyway, let's get back to it. So now there's various ways to kind of control. Now you can turn slides off, and that can be quite handy as well, because for helping you control unwanted things. But and there is also a thing called a bump mask as well that you can enable. Now the way we program things, so I can see what's going on here, there's a little switch here, and this switch is a little toggle switch, can go up and down, but it's like a programmer switch. So if I wanted to change the octave that I'm outputting these MIDI notes at, I fret here on the 10th fret on the D string and flick the switch. It puts me into the octave mode, and now the switch, I'm moving octaves up and down. So so I put the octave, I flick the octave up, flick it up again, and again. So you have to kind of learn where each option lives on the frets, and there's a lot of programmability to this. So they have moved a few of the options around, although I think it's fairly static now. But like knowing, for instance, that your octave shift is that fret, but also I'm often changing the MIDI output, which I know is the 4th fret on the D string. So I hold that down and I can change MIDI channels, and that's particularly useful in the case of the Electron. At the moment, I'm outputting on MIDI channel 9, which I've got that set up on the Analog 4 to be the auto channel. And the way auto channel works is, this is like an Electron thing. So I'm sure if any of you are Electron savvy, you'll know all about this. But if I've got a MIDI keyboard plugged in, which the bass is essentially being like a MIDI keyboard, the auto channel will follow my track selection. You know, so track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, like that, you see. So without me having to change anything on the bass. However, and this is where things get interesting, this bass, I can output each string on a different MIDI channel. So therefore, if I put this then to MIDI channel 1, I'll be playing the sound we've already been hearing, MIDI channel 2. So, you know, I can address each of these tracks here without having to select them. Okay. Now see that fast triggering. You have to really approach this with care, and the amount of trapping notes, stopping it make notes that you don't want it to do, becomes a challenge. It is a challenge. But there are, as I say, there are various ways in the programmability to help you out. Like there's a kind of gate where you have to play over a certain volume before it will trigger, and things like that. The bump mask, as I was mentioning, to reduce the amount that turning off slides, turning off frets. And you can also compress the dynamic range as well, and that's actually really handy. You know, the idea of having the full MIDI range of velocities is kind of cool, except a lot of the time you don't want a huge amount of velocity variance, and in fact quite often you don't want any. For bass lines, big fat bass lines, it's like monosynths often don't use velocity, you know, but we could route the velocity though. And that's what's really ace about the Electron stuff. We can set the velocity to affect only the filter and not the volume. Again, yeah. So the complexity or the sophistication, I should say, of Electron devices, yeah, really means that you can tailor it in such a bespoke way. You could never get anywhere close to this kind of relationship with maybe a typical I don't know, Roland or Korg or something. You know, you could do loads with it. This lets you go into such fine detail. You see, like when you, like on the Analog 4, you've got these performer modes, and each knob in these macro modes, they can affect 5 parameters simultaneously. So that carries across to things like velocity, where velocity can affect 5 separate parameters. So it starts to kind of take the idea of how hard you play and the way it's controlling the sound into really interesting territories. So some techniques don't work, and you can hear where I'm getting like little extra notes going. This is where you have to tighten up the way that you play. It's downstairs. I should have brought it. There is another thing which invented by the industrial radio, a thing called a radio pick, and it's like a plectrum that's got a little wire attached to a little wristband, which is basically a little transmitter. And when you do that, it'll only trigger a note when the tip of the plectrum's got a little metal tip on it, connects with the strings. I'll show that on another video, but that is the absolute fastest way. You can do really super fast picking and it will trigger really, really well. So here then, let me just show you. So if, like a lot of bass lines, there's the thing called the pump, where you pump in eighth notes, sort of. Let me get into a more suitable bass octave, and let's get my MIDI channel back onto my auto channel. So put that back onto 9, and then it's following this selection now. So I'm a bit low now. Let's just get up one more. Okay. So if I do the pump, which is one of the standard type of bass lines, what I'll do is I'll show you kind of what we're up against now. I'll just pump it normally. You can see all the notes are kind of smearing into one. So obviously I might want to go into the amp envelope and get rid of, well, in fact, if I took, let's take the all the release off. But really, you see, if I wanted to get those individual notes, this is where really you need to start getting in and dialing in the velocity sensitivity for the filter and things like that, so that starts to respond, so you can put accents in and that kind of thing. But you see, I'm a bit out of practice, as you can tell on this, but what I typically find though is once I start playing on it, I start to predict the triggering and get better at it. But just talking about controls, this knob here, these ones are volume, tone, but this one is actually a MIDI CC, and it's a modulation wheel. So I can see somebody has just made a point about saying this demo makes you not want to buy it. Well, fair enough, but really, when you start to use the other things that I've been talking about earlier, then it starts to become a lot more. It moves it into the place you want it to be. This, in its basic way, like I'm showing tonight, it can do some cool things, but there is limits to it. But there are workarounds, as I'll show on future shows. As I say, I want to kind of do some weirdy kind of MIDI kind of stuff today, and also. One of the things about addressing each of the 4 synths of the Analog 4 from the 4 strings, you can have a different arpeggiator running on each string. And that's a lot of fun. And that's something that we'll definitely be doing shortly. Soul Case is saying they'd love to have a bass like this, especially with the pick. Yeah, the pick, the radio pick. Oh, perhaps I should. No, I left it downstairs. I was changing the watch battery on it. It uses a little watch battery, but no worries. But that is, it's a different experience. What I would say though, a pick approach, like if I just use a pick, just a regular pick. In fact, I'm going to grab one. I don't think I can reach one without disturbing my cameras. I should have thought about that. I got one. It makes it a kind of, it makes the notes, picking out the notes. Now, like I was mentioning earlier, in this simplistic way I've got it set up, it's not translating the string energy across at all. So what would sound like a dynamic and funky bass line using the regular pickups just sounds a little bit flat and not that impressive. But yeah, let's kind of stick with things though, and we'll try and make it a little bit more unique as we go along. So yeah, I was going to explain then about the MIDI setup, which is a combination of the way this works and the way this works. The poly mode on here, we could choose, like, so if I'm playing into sort of channel 1, I could go into the poly settings. Oh, there's a shortcut. Where is it? But let's just go into here. No, sound setting. Sorry. I just remember where it is. Right. So, but in this sound setting here, we can go in and we can go into, say, our velocity mod, and then we can choose how much velocity is going to affect certain parameters. So let's do that then. Let's well, I can choose any destination, but in this particular patch it's set up, we've got filter depth of both two filters, so filter 1, filter 2, and we've got resonance for both of those filters, and we've got the filter overdrive. A bit too much res. This. Let's give that a bit more. Obviously, you can hear the bass coming through the microphone. Let's put those into positive. So it starts to become a bit more fun then. That's nice. I can feel my velocity then changing the filter settings in, and it's yeah, that's kind of cool. What I was going to do though, polyphony, I'm just forgetting where it is. In a sound, oh, it's in kit, of course. It's in kit. It's the kit. So in analog for terminology, a kit is what all of our tracks are set up. Now there's 4 tracks as I mentioned, but it's actually 6 tracks because we've got an effects track and a CV track as well. So all 6 tracks settings are all contained within this idea of a kit. So I could load in different kits and then it would populate all of these with the stuff from within that kit. But anyway, when we're at kit level, then we can go into polyconfig. So say yes. And now from polyconfig, we can choose how many voices a sound is allowed to access. So I can turn these on with these as like shortcuts. So now what I've essentially done is turn that sound we've just been playing around with. It would be a polyphonic sound. It's not polyphonic yet because I've got to change one setting on the bass. The bass is currently outputting in monophonic mode, but I can put the bass then into poly mode, and then let's jump up an octave on that then. I won't play all four. It's hard to play a full chord, but so I've got a polyphonic synth now, but this is just outputting a single value. It's taking all the notes off the strings, but it's not like I haven't got separate values per string as such. But there's another mode. I want to get rid of that detune. Hang on. So let's take out. We don't want any detune on here for a moment because it's making it sound a bit seasick. Let's take that out. So those notes, those chords. Typically, full chords are not that nice on, but it means at least we've got a polyphonic instrument. But this is where it gets better though, is I can change this then so it's outputting each string as a separate MIDI channel. So then what I'd need to do is copy the sound across on the same sound, and I'll do this. I'll copy the same sound, copy sound, paste. So now pasted the same sound into all four. And now if I set the bass then to MIDI channel 1, then each string is playing each synth separately. Now is great because each string has got its own voice. It's playing the patch I've copied across all four, but it means that the velocity differences in each string sound a lot nicer than it did before. It's not an amazing sound for this, but they're all independent from each other. So what I've done really is make this an MPE. We were talking on Sonic Talk earlier about MPE instruments. This essentially is an MPE instrument, you know. Pitch bend is a... It's hard to demonstrate, but see if I'm bending one string and not bending another, or... It's hard to demonstrate, but it's they're all independent from each other, which is good and what you kind of want it to be. Let's start playing with Arpeggiator ideas then with this. The sound is a bit weird, isn't it? Because I messed around with it with the... So it's taken across. All the velocity sort of settings that I put in. It's lightning fast, the tracking. Yeah. That isn't an issue, how fast it tracks. It's more to do with how to play a MIDI bass, really. Just going to check in with the lovely chat room, just in case I've missed loads. I can't, it's too much. I can't keep up. So, let's just get a blank pattern. So if I was to go into record, in real-time record, probably should have a click, but we'll just, I'll just add a few notes and then we'll take it from there. So. What am I doing? What is this? What is this nonsense? Now, you see, that's kind of crazy. But what you can do is, if you make the track, put hard quantize onto the track, at the moment, it's not quantizing. That's why the notes are all really weird when you try and sort of change them. But if you make it, if you put the quantize on, oops, I can't remember where it all is on here. Pattern. Pattern. It's not in pattern. It is in our. Just remembering. Everything is. You can get to things. Just remembering how to get to things. Note setup, I think. Yeah, note setup. So here, you can turn on things like quantize, and you can set various quantize levels on a per track basis. But you can also, this is something people often miss. You can actually turn on key scale, but it's a bit mean. It only gives you 2 scales. It gives you off, which would essentially be chromatic, major and minor. But you can do a lot with that. Global quantize is what we're going to use now, though. So let's just crank that. Let's max that out. Here's an Electron thing, by the way. You get, actually, not in this case. Oh yeah, but you can. That's right. If you press down on the encoder, pow. You can get huge. You can jump massive distances. So you're not having to, laboriously sort of scroll through things. Okay. Let's just clear that pattern. Let me get out. Actually, no, I'm going to do it without a click because we'll replace notes. Here we go. Let me just do one more thing in that note setup. Yeah, why not? We'll put the key scale on. We'll put it in. Let's put it A minor. Why not? Easy scale to work with. Global quantize. Put that back up. Did I clear? Oh yeah, look at that. When you clear a pattern, it clears this. Do you want it to do that? Well, it does. So clearing a pattern, not only is it clearing the notes, it's actually clearing your quantize settings. Oh, that might have just been. No, I think it did, yeah. Okay. But this is on a per track basis though as well. So following the global quantize, but I'm going to put each track to be in A minor. But we could set the different tracks up to be in different keys. So I guess you could do some, if I was a bit cleverer, do something interesting. Okay, so all the tracks are set to A minor and to a global quantize. So now I can play any old nonsense. That's what I wanted to. Oh yeah, there's that shortcut, isn't there? If you're holding record I can toggle between live or unquantized, or in this case, we want it quantized. I thought that would have been the shortcut way of doing a lot of that. Anyway, let's just play some nonsense and then let's try and see if we can shape it into something. Aha. If you were wondering why the notes I was playing bore no relation to what was playing back, transpose is on, lit up there, transpose. So yes, it is indeed. Let's take transpose off. Right, transpose is off. So I'm just gonna, these notes, it's just going to replace notes now. So you can see it's like really weird. It's like really, really strange. It's not, I don't think it can record in this mode. It can't record. I think it can only record a single track. So it's all a little bit strange. However, I kind of like stuff like this then. Let's see. It can do... Let's just yeah. So that's all recorded into just a track one. Oh, of course. Yeah, so its own. So it's playing polyphonically notes, but only from track one. So the sequencer and this way of being able to do this string per. I think I might be wrong about that, but I don't think you can. I don't think it can record across all four tracks simultaneously. Maybe someone in the chat room can. Brian W's just said, Gaz, I just looked this bass up and it's $3,100 with a build time of 12 months. Why would I tempt us with such an impossible treasure? Well, I might do the opposite. It might put people off as well. So it kind of works both ways. And in full disclosure, this bass was actually sent to me by the company who were interested in my opinions and things about this. A little bit of background time. I've actually done a lot of quite high level MIDI bass work. Would you believe, seeing me sort of plob along tonight? But yes, I have. I've with the Carl Hyde World Tour back 2013 was all done using a Roland GR55 floor-based synthesizer with a Fender jazz bass that's over there with a GK pickup on there. The year before that, I was involved in a rock opera called Popeye in Paris. That was a big production. I used MIDI bass on all of that as well. Again, same setup, but I had it on a different bass. Well, I had two basses with it all set up there. So I've been exploring using MIDI bass in various ways. When I first started playing in the Pop Dungeon with Charlotte Church, amazing radical act that was. I was using MIDI bass, using this, but playing the Dreadbox Erebus, and effectively, no presets and just morphing the sounds between songs. It sounded amazing, but one of the problems when you're using lots of bits of gear, like when you're playing festivals, the amount of setup time you've got is quite often compromised. And the more complex your rig is, the more difficult it makes it. And, ultimately, that's what I was finding with MIDI bass. It's just, it's a lot of work, extra work. And, less so with the GR55. Perhaps we'll do an episode about the GR55 at some point. I do think it is underrated. It has got some amazing features in there. That's the Roland's. I think it's still available, but it's sort of been superseded somewhat by the SY1000, which is now the first of Roland's guitar synths to GK-based things to be. No, it's not the first one, actually. I think the GP10 was, but to be branded as a Boss product rather than Roland. Roland has got this history of synth guitars, stretching back to the GR500 or 300 was the first one back in 1977. So various techniques that I was messing around with when I was using the Roland system on some of those things, and would be I'd capo off on the 12th fret using a regular guitar capo, and then I'd only have a small amount of notes to play with, but they would trigger. They'd trigger really fast, or I'd put it maybe on the 7th fret. But it kind of feels a bit weird when you're playing through a 50k sound system with the most amazing bottom end, huge, big, subby synth thing. But you're right up the neck like this to achieve it. Go, I want to be there. I want to be there. Not up there. It just feels a bit weird. Synth Addict is saying the Sonus never worked, too laggy. The Sonus have made various guitar to MIDI things, monophonic devices. I've got a couple here. It's a weird one. There are ways to kind of help when you are doing pitch to MIDI. One of the things that sometimes helps is if you're not reliant on if you're doing something which is entirely synth based, I think if you turn all the tone controls off and so the tone is all the way off, I think it's easier for it to grab the fundamental. It gets less. I think it dumbs all of the activity down a little bit. That could be making it trigger from an octave up, which is one of the things that those things often do. It gets confused of which octave it should be, so the note oscillates sort of back and forward. Which can be quite fun, and you can kind of harness some of that stuff to a degree. But more often than not, you want to control that sort of stuff. Let's get some ARPs on the go, so I can show you this kind of thing. So yeah, as I was showing you, the recording is a weird old thing. You can do really cool recordings, but to be honest, for recording patterns, and rather than doing it in the polyphonic mode, doing it in the monophonic mode and playing each track in separately is the way to kind of get best results. And I'll do some of that later and show you, and then hopefully we can get some music. Goya is saying I can highly endorse the Jamstick MIDI Studio for best tracking that you've seen. I've got a Jamstick here somewhere. I really didn't get on with it at all. Maybe things have improved since that was a good few years ago since I last looked at that. So I need to, what I would typically do if I'm doing MIDI bass work though is I will just sit and practice for a lot, and just doing sort of little just typical sort of rehearsal kind of type stuff. And after a while, your body, you just start feeling it, and you start feeling more, connected to it. And because of the lack of lag, the lack of lag, it does become it is quite a pleasing experience. But, but it is a mixture of your sound, of your technique, but also the way you've set the sound up to behave. Anyway, I said I'm going to make some arps. Let's do that. So we'll turn the arp on. Now I need to make sure it's MIDI channel 1. So I'm outputting, so I'm poly L, not yet. Great. Right, so I'll set up each string then as a separate one. So it's a channel 1, 2, 3, and 4 that way around. So on here, that's my lowest string, and that's my highest string. I have, hang on, maybe I've swapped it around. I do typically swap it. I prefer my E. I prefer it the other way around. But right, let's get that. Channel 1. I'm just trying to remember the best way to do this. I turned the levels down. That's what I did. That's what I did. Okay, so I need to blend my levels here. So let's put an ARP on this channel, and the ARP on the Analog 4, as you'd expect, gives you loads of cool options, including being able to set up bespoke arpeggiator patterns on a per track basis. And it uses the these trig steps for programming the ARP in. So I could say, I can pick notes, change them around, and make these bespoke ones. And this is changing it. There's like an offset here that's in semitones. But, and this is where things get pretty cool. In the note setup before, do you remember I was setting up notes? I put them all into A minor. So this really starts to pay a bit of dividends then. So with that pattern, so I've got here now. Let's just watch it as I do it as well. So So the mod wheel that I'm doing my little finger here is affecting both channels simultaneously. And that becomes super cool because it means then that the 5 destinations that the mod wheel can be assigned to is on a per track basis. So it means as I'm playing my arpeggiator across, like, say, these 2 strings here, as I'm adjusting this, I can choose how it affects either, you've got 5 options for each string from the single control. Right, let's get some more arps on the go. Let's get this one on. Yeah, let's turn it on. Let's change the rate of these as well. So really getting the levels all kind of working, and we'll get it doing stuff. I'm gonna make this slower. Okay. Now, where is it? Of course. There's a very important part of this. Hang on, I'm just going to have to bend over. I've learnt to cut away when I'm bending over. Okay, why was I bending over? I was trying to reach the sustain pedal. Yes, so the sustain pedal is going into the into this box here. So it means that I can latch my arpeggiator, because there is no arp latch on the Analog 4. You'd have to sort of put it in as a, store it as a, not store it, you'd have to sequence essentially if you wanted to, take your hands off the arpeggiator, which is quite often how you typically work inside of this. But in this case, it's fine because I can latch with my, which is great. My hands are free. Right. So trying to get a little bit more differentiation on a per string basis over which octave the sounds are and the various filter settings. Now, again, this thing is so well appointed, the Analog 4, because each one of these 4 synth voices, is graced with not just 1, but 2 analog filters. So there's like essentially 8 analog filters in this thing. Right, so let's make this ARP. Let's make these ARPs. Oh yeah, so you can do cool things in the settings for the ARPs, including taking out these steps. So if I just play my second one now. So it's going to make these work better together then. Yeah, so let's get more patches. Let's get more ARPs on the go. So this one now. It's interesting how... Oh yeah, so the arp lengths. So these are quite cool then. So let's go on my lowest string. This is quite a cool thing to do. So on my lowest string, I'm going to... let's just get a really simple bass that's going to just alternate between the first and the fifth. So I'll make the length of it. I'll just make it just two steps long, the arp length. Okay. So in the normal arp settings, what I'm going to do on here is let's turn it on and let's make it slow, and I'm going to make the range of it just like 1. So if we play that now, so if we go back into our ARP settings and then we set our second one, and I'm going to take it down, the offset down, and let's just take that offset down by, let's take it down by 5. So now let's try playing these two together. So that third one, let's get this working a bit better together. So what I'll do is here, let's go into the oscillator settings. Let's change the range that these are working over. Whoops. Now that sound is a bit weedy, so let's make it a bit cooler. Let's give it some more distortion, overdrive. Oops, that one, sorry. Track the overdrive. Bring a filter up. Let's get some modulation on the go. And we'll... Are they not syncing? Hang on. So, you see, there's like a chaos. We'll see if we can tame. That's my challenge now over this next sort of 10 minutes. See if I can tame this into something. Right, so that one is a bit annoying. This one. Let's make the ARP a little bit more interesting. So let's make it a bit longer. We'll make this one. Oh, let's make them run at odd lengths anyway. So I'll let this one run at 7 steps. I'll take out a few notes as well. So now they'll be in 7 steps long. Right, and just to make it make a little bit more sense. At the moment, that ARP is operating over 2 octaves. I'm just going to make it operate over a single octave, and I'm going to choose the notes that it works on, like I did with the bass. Okay, and then let's pick some notes for these, and I'll have them going above. So I'll have that going up 7 and have that going up 4. No, 3. And it needs, I think, some delay. Let's get some delay and let's get some activity going on with the sound. And let's get the envelopes, let's get the slower attacks on it. So, and let's add some release onto these notes as well. Bring that delay level down. The chorus is lush on this, so let's give it some of that chorus as well. And why not? Let's go reverb as well. Okay, so I think that bass is pumping away there. I think that could be, I think we could go slower with that as well, I reckon. It's a bit umpy-pumpy, isn't it, that bass going bump? It's a bit like kind of parpy, umpy-pump, sort of like a parping sort of jug band or something. Maybe let's take that low fifth out then. Let's just make it a bit cooler then. And we'll just have it just playing single notes in the bass. And then we make those bass notes deeper and more and slower. Yeah. Let's try and make it cool instead. So I'm going to extend it to being 4 beats long. I'm going to turn off, let's see. Down. Right, let's play with the sound now of this. So, hope this is of some interest. I mean, it's, I don't know. I never know what is interesting to everybody, or what is just me being incredibly boring. So, hope this is of some interest to you and not a real horrible, tedious affair. Right. So we got our little. Let's mess with our sound. Let's get some. We can get a sub on here as well. Let's get things. Oh, I'm changing the wrong sound. Should be on. Oh, I've done it the wrong way around. Yes, so 4 is my lowest string. So it's probably a bit low with that on there. Let's get our pulse on there. Let's get some PWRM on there. Okay. Let's give some more release on our sound, and let's get. Oops. Yeah, let's get some filter envelope on here too. Depth. Yeah. Let's be a bit more aggressive in the filter. Yeah. Sound like I got a touch of flatulence. Yes. Johnny Cavill in the chat room is no, all good here. Oh yeah, so if I go, that's right, if I go in the ARP settings and say length and make the length long, note length long. Longer. Let's make our envelopes. Let's get some sustain portion in the filter. It's nice how, see, I can play notes. So I'm triggering that up. But if I want to play, so I can play extra notes and it'll just start a new arp. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that all my notes are behaving and that we're in A minor for each key. Yes. Oh no, we're not. That's why things have not been quite right. So yeah, the bass has been in a different key. So now this should make those behave a bit better now. So I've got the arps on that second one changing after 7, haven't I? Okay, let's move on to this string then, which is doing. Let's make the sound a bit more interesting. So it's track 2. I think if I switch out the sound, I'm trying to remember if it changes. I just need to make sure. I'm just trying to remember if it brings the different ARP settings in that are stored in the sound. If it saves the ARPs in the kit or if it saves it in the sound, I can't remember. Note track 2. Yeah, it's remembering the key and stuff. So actually, we can find this out easy enough. Change it to a different patch. Okay. This track is loud. Let's make this really quiet now. It's affected, so it's like a background. It's a bit horrible, isn't it? That sound. Let's get something doing a bit more interesting. Regal. Oh. Let's go through a few until we find one that we like. So actually, that is quite a nice sound. Actually, that would sound great with cascading delays. And yeah, so just to be aware that the reverb and the delay are not on a per track basis. These are sends to our global effects, so you can't have different types of delay, for instance, on a per track basis, purely just differing amounts. I'm starting to feel something a bit now. So another thing to sort of bear in mind is that if I got the, because you can't see when I've got the sustain pedal on, but well, it's just working like you'd expect a sustain to work, but so the bass line won't change until I expressly change the note, so it'll just keep cycling it. Oh, right, okay. So what's going on in the chat room? Who would win, Talk Talk's Elephant or New Order's Frogs? Are we talking about the covers? Yeah, Talk. My goodness. Chat room, what are you doing to me? Talk are one of my absolute all-time favourites. In fact, their album, Spirit of Eden, I'll say it now and I'll say it proud, I think is the greatest production ever made. Album production. What a piece of pure genius. The follow-up to that, Laughing Stock, is a very, I sometimes veer a little bit towards Laughing Stock over Spirit of Eden, but actually I come back to Spirit of Eden just because of what it represented. 1988 has nothing to do with 1988 at all. It's almost like the exact opposite of what else was happening in 1988. However, I mean, I know extraordinary amounts of detail about that album, so I'll have to be careful because I could be talking for literally hours on this. The album that came before Spirit of Eden, which is the sort of wonderful Colour of Spring that spawned the amazing single Life's What You Make It, whose lead guitar is David Rhodes, who I played in the David Rhodes Trio. That's one of my super proud moments. David Rhodes, of course, of Peter Gabriel fame, but yeah, is playing that beautiful lead line on Life's What You Make It. I was super thrilled. I was super thrilled when I got the call from David about that tour, and those gigs that we did, because for many years I would maintain that Life's What You Make It is my favourite pop single of all time as well. Yeah. And then Native VS says what I was just about to say, which is that Mark Hollis's, rest his soul, but his solo album is also amazing. And I sort of see those three, Spirit of Eden into Laughing Stock into the album called Mark Hollis, with a very perplexing cover. What is it? A hot water bottle with a dog face? Is it a bit of bread? What is it? But that third one then, the Mark Hollis solo album, is an extraordinary listen. I was talking on Sonic Talk earlier, we were in a little section about mixing, and that album and I was talking about this album project that I'm working on at the moment, which I will be doing a little feature about at some point, but about really using very little compression across the elements to really allow for the acoustic instruments dynamic range. That Hollis album is very acoustic, the third of the trilogy, as I'm calling it, with lots of kind of woodwinds, and the way that album was recorded is quite interesting in that they had a pair of stereo mics that were in a fixed place, in a fixed position in a room. And then when any overdubs would take place, they would position the performer somewhere in the room. So if they wanted it, so they weren't going to play with anything panning. They were just, any panning was done in instrument placement. The mics would stay put. So if they wanted to put sort of the clarinets or whatever wide, the musician would have to stand wide of the mics and play. Now, I was really inspired when I heard about this way of working, and I worked on a song where we did that very thing, and we did loads of vocals in this particular thing, and we were doing that. We just stand in different places to add the different vocals, and then just record everything in stereo and don't really touch anything. Just allow that localization, natural localization to work. Yeah, so not moving any mics. But something that has to be said about those Talk albums, they need multiple listens. They're so minimal in their approach that you certainly need to hear those albums, I think, a minimum 5 times before they start to really reveal themselves. And the way I've described this in the past is a little bit like doing a really complicated painting, and then erasing almost as much of it as you can and just leave just a few lines here and there. And that's kind of how it sounds. It's almost, and in a way, that's how the production sort of worked, certainly with Spirit of Eden, about putting down loads and loads of things and then just taking away as much as you possibly can. And you almost get like the ghost of what was there once you've removed the thing that was there, because other things had maybe been influenced by it, but you've taken the thing that was the influencer away. You get these musical clues. And I think this is why you need to listen to it at least about 5 times, because I think the brain needs to get familiar a little bit with it to start filling in some of the blanks. I think when you first start hearing it, you can hear the sound and the texture, and it's beautiful, and it's certainly a involving thing. But I think the repetition, when you start to recognize the music, that's when you start to fill in the missing blanks, and the music suddenly becomes incredibly more detailed. So that might just be my own way of interpreting it, but I definitely feel that has some kind of connectivity to that particular music. But as I say, Spirit of Eden, best production ever. And the production, I'm going to stop talking about this in a moment, but that production was done in such an extreme way. And what I mean by that is the musicians entered into quite an unusual situation where it was being recorded in a converted chapel that was turned into a studio, and that they blocked all natural light out, and they replaced the light as just slow moving oil, sort of those oil projector lights. So you had like slow color fades, and the musicians would go in and they would do like weeks of this. They would remove all their watches, and they would sleep when they were tired, and they would eat when they were hungry. But the idea was absolute immersion into the creative process, to disorient themselves from the normal rigors of day-to-day life, and just to exist outside of normality and just exist within this surreal kind of world. And then that would then inform the way that they would approach the music and the mixing and so it's a very sort of extreme way to go about things. But I think that the depth within that music is indicative of that absolute immersion. Yeah. Sorry, just looking at the chat room. I can't look at it. See, there's an example of my wandering mind there. Just seeing talk, and I'm off, and I've barely scratched the surface. Needless to say, if you're not familiar with those, you should be, and you will be ever so grateful. But please, if you do want to take that on, don't give up after a couple of listens, stick with it, and it will reveal itself. And I promise you, I will give you 100% promise here that it will make your life better once it has revealed itself to you. Everything will be better. Food will taste better. Sex will be better. Well, I'm going to be careful what I'm promising here. Colors will become more vibrant. Well, I might be just getting a little bit ahead of myself there, but really, great art does have the power to create truly transcendental experiences, and none finer in the rock and roll, if you can call it rock and roll, canon than Spirit of Eden. All right. So, where was I? Oh yeah, one last thing about Spirit of Eden. No instruments or anything was pre-1967 technology, I think. Everything had to be, they deliberately, instead of using synths, like their music had become very, very well known for the layers of synths and stuff. And those earlier albums are definitely a synth, from the synth pop thing. But with Spirit of Eden, no synths at all. But lots of synth influence, but instead of using synths, they would use like the real thing. And there's beautiful cor anglais and, boys choir stuff. But they'd get a real, boys choir in to do it in. It's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. The, textures and the sound, that wouldn't have sounded like that if they hadn't have been working with synths. But rather than using synths to get that thing, they would use organic and real instruments. Anyway, I'm going to shut up about that and get back to this. It's so bizarre. It's so different for a bass guitar to do these kind of things. It's a bit uncontrollable. It just takes over a bit too much, this one that's on the D string, this one. Yeah, so I don't want that arp to kind of latch in the same way. I think it's nice. That's nicer when you just... rather than... So if I go back into my ARP settings for that one, track 2. Maybe I've punched a bunch of notes out. But I think I might, I'm just going to simplify it a moment. That's quite nice. I mean, that's lasting for 5 beats, but of course the ARP settings, it's the RNG, which stands for range, is set to 3, so you're getting it playing 3 octaves of those 5 notes. Let's increase the range just for fun. Maximum is 8. It's getting a bit too crazy up there. Let's just pull that down to 6. So 5. need now, I'm going to get this one. This one's a little bit quiet. This is on track 3. Let's bring that up a little bit. Track 2 is still way loud, isn't it? I want to make this bass one a bit more sustained. I want it to sustain. I want longer notes. I want them to stay much longer. Let's see how it looks. I think my amp. Okay, I'll come back to that. So this one now. Let's make a slow but high one. Right, so track 1. Let's look for a sound first. Right, let's make that slow. And let's make that arp a bit more interesting. Take out every other and then leave a few more. See, because I've locked, you can hear the bass over the microphone playing notes which are out of the key, but it's because I've got it essentially scale quantizing. So it means everything I'm playing is locked into A minor, so I can be, you know, really random in my playing. Let's find another nicer sound on the top there. Regal Squirter. Ooh, that doesn't sound very nice. Because of course, I'll do it. Why not? Why not do it just for fun? You know, you can make on the Analog 4, because of the way that you can set up each voice, even though it's 4 voices, each voice is made up of 2 oscillators, but with another 2 sub-oscillators available for that. So almost each voice is potentially 4 oscillators. And the subs don't have to be set to an octave down. They can actually be set to 5th. So what it allows us to do is to take a single note, play a single note, but actually turn it into a chord. So that's what we'll do now. So oscillator 1, I'm going to pick the sub, and I'm going to set it to a 5th. Oscillator 2 is also going to have the sub set to a 5th, but I'm going to set. Let's find so the coarse tuning then will make the 5th be, keep that in. The 5th will follow whatever I set the coarse tuning to. So it allows you to find chords. And let's try it around here. Let's try that again. So there's a melody there, or a pattern. So see if I can bring the other things into that. So. I don't know, those aren't really working with it. I'm just going to stick with this for a moment now. Let's just make that a little bit more effecty sounding. There's a bit more reverb, a bit of the delay. Chorus, why not? Back the reverb and the chorus back a bit. Went a bit heavy-handed then, but it sounded good. You can't tell me that that's not cool. Getting a bass and doing that. See, this now is where this format, if we think about this as a MIDI controller, that is starting to become something that I think would be quite difficult to do on a keyboard. Should you wish to want to actually do that, but if you think about what's going on, that would be quite a weird thing to be able to play on a keyboard. Do you know what I mean? I don't know that you would find some of this stuff. I think it's quite exciting, isn't it? It's sort of. But it is kind of. Oof, let's get that. So, getting the levels all kind of under control. Oh man, it's deep. It's so deep. And if we rewind back to right early on, I was saying about how the velocity levels of each string can have 5 destinations. And we can actually set the bass up to, if I do a pitch bend, in fact, let me do that. Instead of it sending pitch bend information, I can't remember which fret it's on now. It's not a setting I change very often. Oh, here is a cool thing I forgot to mention as well. With the sustain pedal that I'm using, you can choose which strings the sustain will affect. So that actually is pretty cool, because you could have, some strings locking into the arp and some strings not. But let's just find that Aftertouch. Yeah, so basically what you can do is, if I can find it, bend type, normal. Oops. Aftertouch. Yeah. So any bend won't send... bends now won't send any pitch bend information, but will send Aftertouch information. So if we jump into our sound settings for, I'll do it for this sound. So channel 1. And again, remember, you've got 5 destinations for Aftertouch per string. So all 4 synth engines, if I was to bend strings, could make many, loads of different things happen, God. So I hope you can see what I'm kind of getting at here, that this combination has got just utterly billions of potential configurations. Right, so let's do that then. So I'm going to go into sound settings, come down here and go into Aftertouch, and let's go on that screen a moment. So this little indicator here is showing, it's actually showing us how much of that information it's receiving. So if I play a note, you won't see anything there, but if I bend it, so you can see that me doing a big old bend and it's only registering a very small amount of Aftertouch. It's getting up to about 23. So what I'll do is then I'll just whack up these. I'll whack up the 5. So oscillator X vibrato, meaning both oscillators it's gonna be vibrato on there. Filter will get brighter. Both filters will get brighter. LFO1 depth and LFO2 depth are both cranked quite high. So let's see. There's our sound. That's our sound. And let's get back to here. Bend a note. Maybe more. Let's. I can just max them all out. Actually, why not? Yeah. Oops. That's me triggering. Why that's triggering, by the way, is because as I'm bending a note, if it bends up high enough, and it, for those of you who missed the very beginning of the show, is that this bass, maybe I can show it on this camera. Here we go. Can you see? There's like diagonal slats. I don't know how easy it is to make out that. Let me just angle it a little bit and see if you can see. There, can you see? So that basically each fret is like a button. So if I'm bending a note and it crosses over, there, Okay. Make this track a bit louder now. Oh, actually, why not? Why don't we just go to let's go back and let's just crank that Aftertouch effect on across all four engines. Let's come down. Oh yeah, just incidentally, you know, it's like because the four engines are, four voices are so independent. If you want them to be, you know, some can be set to legato, some not set to legato. Velocity to volume, so you can disable that on a per string basis. Yeah, and then here's our mods here. So I'm gonna go down to Aftertouch, say yes. So I'm on track 2, just max everything. Oh look, as well, of course, I forgot, when you turn this up, you change the offset of it. Oh, I see. I see. So I could set it, as long as I don't send it another Aftertouch message. No, it probably will change, won't it, if I go off that? I'll leave it off anyway. So. Okay, so just do that for all. Let's just whack them up for all of them. Oh, these things are so wicked to use. These Electron boxes, they are really ace. Something I typically say about Electron stuff is you do need to kind of have a cerebral kind of relationship with them. You need to understand where everything lives and how to get there and how to navigate them. And they are fast. I mean, I haven't used this a lot in the last few months. I'm starting to remember everything, but they do remind me a little bit of like a computer game with shortcuts or, you know, key combos. And once you get those key combos, then you can move so much faster around it than you could perhaps on a computer, for instance, you know. Or just like I was saying there, you know, just being able just to kind of set all the levels just across a bunch of knobs simultaneously. I want to make this one louder. Yeah, so I've inadvertently changed what the sustain pedal is doing. I have to remember, I think I've changed the setting on the, let me just find it. Oh yeah. Foot mode freeze, that's why. Sustain. I was wondering what was going on. Here we go. We're back into Crazyland now. Okay, let me see if I can do something with this now. Oh, let's choose which. Let's choose which. I just can't remember how to do it. I'll choose which strings will sustain or not. If I can remember where it is. God, there's a lot of settings. There is, though, there is a software editor for the settings. So as I say, I think the new ones, I think they may have stopped doing this. You still program it. You can still program it the same way, but you would need to be looking at a computer screen to see the information. I think the thinking is that you program it. Once it's programmed, you don't actually need to refer to that very much. I would miss it, I think, because I'm used to this way of doing stuff. However, I can't find that setting. I'm sure you could do it. Foot mode is sustain, but there is a setting somewhere which chooses which strings are in the sustain. Incidentally, this top G string with the switches can store different memories. And that's what I typically do. Is I don't want to do it now because it'll change all the settings, but when you fret on the G string and choose, it will change the complete configuration of the bass. So essentially presets for the whole MIDI thing. So, you know, when I'm controlling the whole MIDI rig here, that's when I change these. I can go to the octa track, I can go to the analog rhythm, you know, I can go to this one, and just by choosing which fret with that. Getting a bit bored of the sounds I've chosen, but this sound has got out of control now. This one will get a bit loud. I know what I'm going to do for fun. First thing I should probably do is save this kit. So I'll do that. I'll save it, and I'll save it into a new slot. I'll just chuck a gas on the end of there. That'll do. So what I'll do is I'll load in a different kit. So a kit, this will get rid of my ARP settings. I think the ARP settings are tied to the kit. Yeah, I think they are. Not the sound. Oolong. Gone in. No, I didn't load the kit. Sorry. What am I doing? I want to go kit. Load kit. Oh yeah, sorry, did it wrong. So I can now. So now I've got a whole set of new 4 sounds. I've got on there, on there, on there, and oh yes, I said I was going to do some pattern recording. This is quite fun then when I go to a new kit then. So let's have a look. Let's get a blank pattern on the go. So I'll do something really. Let's do something simple to start with. Oh, I was in song mode then. That's why it was stopping. Right. Let's just see. Let's work with a one bar pan. Nice pattern. So let's go to a fresh one now. We'll use the same sounds then. Let's just remind. Just make a new chain. Not so keen on that one. That's nice. I like that one. It's just it's a bit weird working without a click track. Well, I can turn a click on. Why not? Why not turn a click? Oh, what's the shortcut for it? Remind me. Click, click, click. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay. Din, 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 din. Sorry, I get a bit loud. Messed that up a bit then. I tried to change the setting, it didn't quite work. So, you can see now, I hope that this is all starting to kind of make a bit more sense. I know it took a bit of time to kind of get here, but it becomes a really unique thing, doesn't it? I just think that it's such a brilliant combination. Actually, this is the most fun, I think, doing this kind of stuff. So did you notice what was happening then? By leaving it into record, I could just keep modifying the pattern on the fly. Let's just do that, so you can hear it change. And I think, just for fun, I'm going to go to a new pattern. And not only am I going to go to a new pattern, I'm going to go to a different kit. Actually, before I do that, this is something to be aware of. I'm going to go back. Actually, some of these are quite nice. So you just have to save. And in fact, I'm going to save kit. And sorry, I got a save pattern, haven't I? That's what I've got to do. I've got to go hold pattern. Yes. Oh no, yes, pattern. Pattern saved. So when you save the pattern, it will then store the kit that you had assigned to it. So I just go through those patterns that I'd created and just go, yes, pattern. Choose the other ones. Yes, pattern. Yes, so those are all saved now with that kit. And they're lightning fast, these boxes. You can change from kit to another kit instantaneously, because it's got no sample time. It's just literally just telling the 4 analog synth engines to be that, to set all of their parameters in an instant. Hence how you can do sound locking and all that kind of thing, having a preset change on any step or every step. So that sort of stuff again is one of the kind of superpowers lurking inside the Analog 4. So let's load in a different kit then. So, oh, I've got something on that pattern. Oh yeah, I messed that pattern up. So let's just go to a fresh pattern now. And now I'm going to go kit, load kit, and I'll just grab one at random. I will just grab it at random. Bjorn. Let's see what Bjorn's got to offer us. Right. And I'm going to record as well. So we don't know what it is. I think I'm going to make this a bit more interesting as well. And I'm going to make a 4-bar pattern. So it's got a bit more scope to do. When I change the pattern page there, because I added pages to it, it copies anything that's in that first page. Hence that note being repeated each time, which is fine for now. Let's go. That's quite quiet, isn't it, that one? Let's turn that up. That's that. Okay. So I'll save that. It's not great, but it'll do. Pattern. Okay, yes, pattern, there we go. Let's go to a new fresh pattern. And it'll, if you go to a fresh pattern that hasn't got a kit saved to it, then the kit that you've just been using will be the one. We can actually see that it's flashing the K for the kit is kit 26 Bjorn. The K, that bit's flashing to kind of indicate that it's not saved, that there's no assigned kit to this pattern, so it'll just be this one again. Boom, boom. Well, I think I'm going to probably call it a night now. I think because I've gone on for quite a long time. I hope you've enjoyed this. This is going to be something that I'm going to come back to, and I hope you're all right about that because there is a load more I want to do, especially when you start to bring this whole kind of setup in. It's ludicrous what you can do with it. Absolutely ludicrous. I think what I might do next week is I might revisit and I might have a guest next week, so that's not been confirmed. I will maybe make an announcement if I get that confirmed. Just checking in the thank you very much for the look at all those nice comments. Thank you so much. That's really kind. The nice comments and likes and all that kind of stuff. That's how to make me happy. So please subscribe and like and all that business. And what do I say? Click the stinking bell should you wish to be disturbed every time that I post a video or go live. Native VS, always lovely to see me. Thank you very much. But you still don't get the rave about the Electron boxes. Yeah, I get that. But I mean, I think what I'd like to hope that I've achieved a little bit tonight is just show the fact that this peculiar synth and the four voices matching with the four channels of the bass, there is a really kind of interesting an interesting connection. Sonic Link saying the RC 505 next time. Yeah, the 505 is great to have that on hand and just layer up stuff. Maybe we could do something like that. I will definitely be doing a lot more MIDI based stuff. And as I say, bringing in this and how you can control everything. And see here, there's a vocal processor that's in the MIDI thing as well. And that's actually taking MIDI notes from the bass as well. So you can kind of do sort of vocody things, but also generate harmonies. It will generate harmonies derived from the notes that you're actually fretting, and that's a lot of fun. So there's plenty of stuff to show you really with all this stuff, and again, I'm just scratching the surface really with the Electron, with the Analog 4 rather. I think then to play out, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to load another kit and I'll do a little jam out, and then we will say goodbye and good night. Well, I'll certainly say that now. Please hope everyone is well and take care and look after each other and be nice and kind and all of that, all the good stuff. And I'll see you on the other side. I'm going to kind of jam out. Thank you so much. Bye for now. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Monday night, 10:30 GMT for Adventures in Eurorack, and 8 p.m. Wednesday for more Gaz Williams shows. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye for now.